The movie opens up with credits while we hear Trevor Resnick dealing with something big and heavy. He drives his truck close to a dam and seems to have a wrapped body to get rid of. He gets worried when someone approaches with a flashlight. He pushes the wrapped body down, and it starts to unfold. At that moment, the person with the flashlight catches up and asks, "Who are you?" Moments later, Trevor returns home and washes his hands with bleach. As he gazes at himself in the mirror, he spots a post-it note on the wall behind him, questioning, "Who are you?" This prompts reflect on how everything began. He recalls spending the night with Stevie, a call girl. They finished making love at her place, and Trevor washes up. She pokes fun at his extremely low weight. He creeps her out by sucking in his stomach and arching his back to show his bones sticking out. He walks out the door, leaving a tip in her jar. At the factory, Trevor overhears his supervisor Tucker reprimanding Miller for stopping a machine to clean it, as it wastes time. Trevor interjects, explaining that this safety measure is mandated by legal regulations. Tucker backs off from Miller, but warns Trevor that he's landed on his bad side. After work, Trevor and his co-workers chat in the locker room while changing clothes. Jones asks Trevor to join them for a card game, but Trevor declines. Jones notices that Trevor doesn't socialize like he used to, hinting that something might be wrong with Trevor. In the middle of the night, Trevor drives to the airport to enjoy coffee at his favorite diner, where he knows the friendly waitress, Maria. She playfully uses the same phrase as Stevie. If he were any thinner, he wouldn't exist. Trevor brushes off the strange feeling of déjà vu and continues chatting with her, even flirting a bit. When Maria brings him pie, hoping he'll gain some weight, Trevor politely declines, insisting he's fine with her company. After finishing his coffee and leaving a generous tip, he exits without touching the pie. Returning home, Trevor decides to weigh himself. When he sees that he now weighs 121 pounds, he writes it on a post-it note and adds it to the wall where he's been keeping track of his weight. He notices that all the numbers have been steadily decreasing. Then he starts scrubbing the bathroom floor with a toothbrush and some bleach, quickly finishing up the bottle. So he writes a reminder to buy more on yet another post-it note that he sticks to the refrigerator. The next day at work, Trevor is called to his boss office, who is concerned about his health and wonders if he's using drugs. Trevor assures them he's okay, but they still ask for a urine sample for tests. Later, he goes to the parking lot for a smoke and is bothered by the sight of his vehicle's lighter for some reason. He tries to rest, but is disturbed by a red car pulling up beside him, driven by Ivan, who is also smoking and wearing big sunglasses. The man introduces himself as another coworker whom Trevor may not have seen before because he works in the pit with Reynolds. After some small talk, Ivan leaves, and Trevor notices his unusual boots. The next day, Miller asks Trevor to help him with a machine, assuring him that the safety measures are in place as regulations require. Trevor keeps only half of his attention on it as he watches the other workers around the factory. He notices Ivan working nearby and is suddenly startled when the man makes a throat-cutting gesture. This startles Trevor, causing him to step back and accidentally activate the machine they're working on. Miller's hand gets trapped in it, and despite their efforts, they're unable to free him in time. He loses his arm in the accident. After calling for help, Trevor checks on Ivan, but he's already disappeared. When he gets home, he washes his hands with bleach and vomits in the toilet before recording his weight as 119. During dinner, he opens a letter warning of a potential power cut due to unpaid bills. Trevor makes another note to remind himself to pay utilities. As he goes to stick it on the refrigerator, he finds a little piece of paper already there. Starting a game of hangman, surprised and confused, he decides to take the rent money to his landlady, Mrs. Shrike, and ask if she's noticed anyone around his apartment or anything unusual. However, she hasn't seen anything. The next day, Trevor's bosses question him about the accident, and he confesses it was his fault for getting distracted by Ivan. However, nobody understands who Ivan is because there's no one by that name working there. Trevor confirms this when he searches for him but can't find him anywhere. Feeling disoriented after the conversation, Trevor heads to the airport to visit Maria and have his usual coffee. Maria questions why he always drives all the way there just for coffee. When they discuss Mother's Day, Trevor mentions that his mom passed away some time ago. Maria kindly invites him to join her and her son at the amusement park, which Trevor accepts. Back at work, Trevor's co-workers are furious with him, believing he's a jinx. They express their lack of trust in him, feeling uneasy about having him around. As Trevor leaves the building, he spots Ivan driving away in his red car. Determined, Trevor follows him until their vehicles are side by side at a red light. Trevor urges Ivan to tell their superiors what happened, but Ivan refuses. However, he agrees to talk privately and suggests they go to a bar. At the bar, Trevor orders whiskey, which is unusual for him. He tries to ask Ivan about work, but Ivan avoids the questions and instead shows Trevor his deformed hand. When Trevor persists, Ivan claims their co-workers are playing a trick on him by pretending Ivan doesn't exist. Ivan then excuses himself to the restroom, giving Trevor the opportunity to search his wallet for clues. Trevor finds a photo of Ivan and Reynolds on a fishing trip, leading him to believe it's all a conspiracy. He steals the photograph before returning home. Back at home, Trevor calls Reynolds and threatens to use the photo as proof, but Reynolds abruptly hangs up. When Trevor goes to the kitchen, he discovers that the hangman note has been updated. The stick figure now has a head and a body, and the letters E and R have been added to the end of it. Disturbed, Trevor tosses the note in the trash and rushes to see Stevie. Trevor confides in Stevie about the accident and how his co-workers have turned against him. While he understands their feelings, he finds their strange games unsettling. He speculates that the answer to the hangman puzzle could be Tucker, their supervisor. However, Stevie suggests that if they truly wanted Trevor gone, they would have fired him already. On Mother's Day, Trevor accompanies Maria and her son Nicholas to the amusement park. While taking a picture of them in front of the carousel, he notices a strange glow nearby and gets distracted. When Maria asks, he brushes it off, saying he's feeling nostalgic because he used to visit the park as a child. Their outing is interrupted when Maria receives a call from her ex, so Trevor offers to take Nicholas on a ride to give them privacy. As they make their way to the ride, Trevor shares with Nicholas that his own father left him when he was young, and he didn't fully appreciate his mother's efforts until he was older. He encourages Nicholas to appreciate Maria's love and care. The ride Trevor chooses for them is horror-themed, called Route 666. Initially, the decorations seem typical. As they ride, the attraction becomes increasingly disturbing, with scenes of body parts being hacked, a hangman, a motel depicting lewd acts, and a very realistic car crash. When given the choice between the path to hell and the path to salvation, Nicholas goes against Trevor's request and chooses hell. The flashing lights trigger visions of incomprehensible things for Trevor and cause Nicholas to have an epileptic seizure. Trevor quickly picks up Nicholas and rushes out of the ride, calling for help. Maria arrives and reassures him that an ambulance won't be needed, as this is a normal reaction and it will pass soon. Moments later, Trevor drives them home in his truck, and Maria invites him inside for a drink. As Trevor enters the house, he notices a strange clown-like statue and a beautiful glass bowl, experiencing a sense of déjà vu once again. Once Maria brings them glasses of wine, she asks Trevor why he always leaves such generous tips. He explains that he wants to show his appreciation for her company. Maria assures him he doesn't need to buy her companionship and suggests they could just go out to a movie someday, which Trevor accepts. He then goes to the kitchen to pour more wine. There, he discovers a Mother's Day card with the same stick figure he saw on his hangman note. When he returns home later, his first instinct is to retrieve the note from the trash can and fill in the spaces with the word mother. Afterward, he digs out an old photo album from his closet and comes across a picture of himself and his mother as a child, standing in front of a carousel. The position is strikingly similar to Maria and Nicholas' own picture. The next day, Trevor is assigned to work on a different machine than usual. He notices Miller has come by to say his final goodbyes and collect his pay, so Trevor takes the opportunity to apologize and assure him he can rely on him for anything. Miller reassures Trevor that there are no hard feelings. As Trevor returns to work on the machine, it unexpectedly activates and captures his arm, similar to what happened to Miller. Crying out for help, Trevor reaches out with his free hand and grabs a random tool, using it to reach the power button and turn the machine off. His co-workers rush over and help him get free, but Trevor isn't grateful. In fact, he starts causing a scene, convinced that one of them deliberately caused the incident. When Reynolds suggests that Trevor might be imagining things again, Trevor presses him about Ivan and searches his wallet for the photo that could prove the conspiracy, but it's nowhere to be found. Tucker comes to check on him, and Trevor finally loses control. He pushes his superior against a machine with the intention of starting a fight. His co-workers intervene and pull them apart, but Tucker ultimately decides to fire Trevor. He then returns home and checks the kitchen and discovers that the refrigerator is leaking blood everywhere. The hangman note on its door has been altered again, this time with the letters I and L added. Trevor now believes the answer is Miller. The next day, Trevor confronts Miller at his house, accusing him of deliberately causing the machine accident as revenge. Miller initially tries to ignore him, but when Trevor persists, Miller reacts violently, punching him in the groin and kicking him out of his home. Outside, Trevor finds Ivan waiting for him in his red car, leading him to believe that Ivan has been working with Miller. Trevor runs to his truck and starts following Ivan into the countryside, managing to get close enough to see the license plate. However, he's distracted when he notices someone in the passenger seat next to Ivan. However, his own vehicle malfunctioned, allowing Ivan to escape. After returning to the city, Trevor visits the DMV to obtain information on the license plate. The clerk informs him that such details are private unless a crime has been committed. Feeling desperate, Trevor hesitates for several minutes before throwing himself in front of a moving car. He sustains enough bruises to make his injuries believable and then goes to the police station to file a fake report on a hit-and-run accident. While waiting in the police station's waiting room, Trevor nearly falls asleep but is abruptly awakened by a police officer. The officer informs him that they investigated the license plate, and the red car is registered under Trevor's name. Furthermore, it was reported as wrecked a year ago. Feeling disoriented, Trevor realizes he's in trouble when the officer warns him that filing fake reports is a felony. Trevor flees before they can arrest him, with 2 officers close on his heels. As he runs, Trevor reaches the subway station and takes the stairs down. Spotting a manhole, he opens it and descends into the sewers below. In the darkness, he faces a decision between 2 different paths once again. Since there is a person walking on the bright path, he takes the dark one instead. Trevor staggers back to Stevie's place, where she's shocked by the severity of his injuries and urges him to see a doctor, but he stubbornly refuses. Stevie offers to let Trevor move in with her and help him find a regular job, but their conversation takes a dark turn when Trevor notices the picture of Ivan with Reynolds. He accuses Stevie of conspiring against him with Ivan. Stevie tries to explain that the photo is of Reynolds and Trevor himself, not Ivan. She insists she has no idea who Ivan is and that Trevor left the picture behind on his last visit. Enraged, Trevor lashes out, calling Stevie a call girl. In response, Stevie calls Trevor a psycho, suggesting that's why he avoids doctors. She slaps him and orders him to leave. Trevor drives to the airport and heads straight to his favorite diner, expecting to see Maria. However, he's greeted by a different waitress. Confused, Trevor asks about Maria, only to be told that there has never been a Maria working there. The waitress explains that she's always been the one serving Trevor his coffee, and she's surprised to hear him talk now because he's always been so quiet that she had thought he was mute. Feeling increasingly paranoid, Trevor starts causing a scene, accusing everyone in the diner of being part of the conspiracy before storming out. In the parking lot, Trevor spots Ivan in his car and decides to follow him back to town. Ivan parks in front of Trevor's own apartment, but the real shock comes when Trevor realizes that the person with him isn't Stevie, it's Nicholas. Determined to find out what's going on, Trevor follows them inside. Inside, he discovers Ivan playing with a knife in front of the mirror, but Nicholas is nowhere to be seen. Ivan implies that he's already killed Nicholas and that his body is in the tub. Filled with rage and desperation, Trevor attacks Ivan. After a fierce struggle over the knife, Trevor manages to gain control and ultimately kills Ivan in self-defense. After the confrontation, Trevor opens the shower curtains but finds the tub empty. He then checks his refrigerator, which is full of spoiled food and rotten fish matching those in the photograph. It suddenly dawns on Trevor. The person with Reynolds in the picture has always been him. The film then goes back to the beginning. Trevor wraps Ivan's body inside the carpet and takes it to the sea. However, as the carpet begins to unroll, Trevor is shocked to find it empty. To his horror, he realizes that the man using his yellow flashlight is Ivan himself. Back at Trevor's place, he washes his hands with bleach. He sees the post-it that asks, "Who are you?" Reflected in the mirror, he sees Ivan standing behind him and then finally remembers what actually happened a year ago. While driving his red car, Trevor gets distracted searching for the lighter and accidentally runs over Nicholas. The sunglasses, the car, the boots, everything belonged to Trevor. He drives away from the scene as Maria arrives to find her son dead. The waitress resembling Maria and the time spent together were all hallucinations induced by Trevor's overwhelming guilt. His insomnia, too, was a manifestation of his troubled conscience. After crying for what feels like an eternity, Trevor completes the hangman puzzle with permanent ink, forming the word killer instead of using a pencil like before. After some days, he takes a trip downtown to a police station, where he walks in and says, "I'd like to report a hit and run," confessing to his crime. The officers ask if he wants to make a statement or a phone call. Trevor responds, "Later. I just want to get some sleep right now." As he sits in his cell, the exhaustion finally catches up to him, and he starts to doze off. In this way, movie ends here. Thanks for watching. Like and subscribe for more interesting movie recaps.